Snow bit into their faces like shrapnel as Sergeant Viktor Kuznetsov led his depleted squad through the labyrinthine ruins of Stalingrad's Red October steel factory. The wind off the Volga howled through jagged gaps in the concrete walls, carrying the acrid tang of charred metal and distant gunfire that never fully ceased. Kuznetsov's greatcoat, stiffened with frozen blood from a graze on his arm, flapped against his emaciated frame. His PPSH-41 submachine gun hung heavy from its strap, its drum magazine half empty after repelling a German probe earlier that dawn. The men, four shadows in woolen ushankas and padded telegraikas, their boots wrapped in rags against the frost, moved in a hunched line, lanterns casting erratic beams over twisted rebar and snow-dusted rubble. Supplies had evaporated weeks ago. The last airdropped canister had burst open on impact, its contents scattered and claimed by rats. Hunger clawed at their bellies, driving this forbidden foray into the factory's bowels, a zone whispered about in the bunkers as cursed ground where the dead refused to stay buried. Private Alexei Ivanov, the youngest with frost-nipped fingers, paused to pry at a collapsed beam, uncovering a glint in the frost, an ancient silver reliquary, etched with Orthodox saints and unfamiliar runes, its lid cracked but intact. He lifted it silently, eyes widening at its unnatural warmth, piercing the sub-zero chill, pocketing it as the squad pressed deeper into the shadows. The relic's discovery lingered unspoken, a subtle shift in the air like the prelude to an artillery barrage. They navigated the factory's skeletal halls, where massive forges lay silent and gutted, their iron husks twisted by repeated bombings. Artillery rumbled sporadically from the German lines across the Volga, shaking loose cascades of snow from overhead girders, but closer came peculiar scratches, faint, insistent, like fingernails scraping from within the walls. Kuznetsov signaled a halt near a shattered stairwell leading to a basement dugout, his breath clouding in the lantern's dim glow. The squad huddled against a frozen conveyor belt, sharing a crumpled cigarette passed hand to hand, its embers a fleeting defiance against the encroaching dark. Ivanov fidgeted with his pocket, the reliquary's weight pulling at him like an anchor. His gaze darted to corners where shadows pooled unnaturally deep. Whispers had circulated among the Red Army's ranks, folklore born from the city's ancient roots and the siege's despair. Artifacts unearthed by shellfire, relics from long-buried monasteries or czarist vaults, said to bind the souls of the fallen to the ruins, cursing any who disturbed them. Kuznetsov, a veteran of the Don Front, dismissed such tales as the ravings of shell-shocked minds, yet a premonition gnawed at him, a recurring dream of skeletal hands rising from the snow, clutching at his boots with fingers of ice. As dusk bled into night, the tension coiled tighter. Corporal Grigory Sokolov, his bandaged leg from a mine fragment slowing his step, volunteered to scout the stairwell for any salvageable ammunition crates rumored to be below. His lantern bobbed downward, casting elongated shadows that danced like specters on the walls. A muffled thud echoed up, followed by silence thicker than the fog rolling off the river. The squad surged forward, boots crunching over glass and debris, lanterns sweeping the descent to reveal only scuffed snow and Sokolov's discarded Nagagant revolver, its barrel rimed with frost. No footprints trailed away, no blood marked a struggle. The ruins had claimed him as if the earth itself had opened and swallowed whole. Ivanov's hand instinctively gripped the reliquary, his face draining of color as whispers began, soft, ethereal voices murmuring in archaic Russian, prayers fragmented and echoing from the vents like echoes from a desecrated chapel. Kuznetsov's survival instinct surged. He barked a silent gesture to retreat toward their forward outpost, a reinforced cellar in the factory's administrative block. But the path warped inexplicably, familiar heaps of rubble shifting in the swirling snow, forcing detours through narrow corridors, where the air grew heavier with the stench of decay overpowering the gunpowder residue. They reached the cellar as full night descended, barricading the entrance with overturned filing cabinets and splintered beams. The reliquary now lay exposed on a makeshift table amid empty ration tins, its runes catching the lantern's flicker with an eerie luminescence. Letters from home, faded envelopes bearing stamps from distant villages, their contents tales of harvest and hope, were scattered nearby, unread in the dim light, talismans against the isolation. The whispers intensified, evolving into pleas. Names of comrades lost in the September assaults on the tractor factory, voices calling from the walls, as if trapped in the concrete. Kuznetsov paced the confined space. His men, Private Ivanov, Private Mikhail Petrov, and the stoic Lance Corporal Elena Vasilieva, one of the few women in the sniper detachments, shifting uneasily, rifles cradled like lifelines. Vasilieva, her SVD scope wrapped in cloth against the cold, muttered a half-remembered prayer, her eyes reflecting the suppressed fear that gnawed at them all. The cold seeped through the cracks, unrelated to the plummeting temperatures outside. Frost formed on the reliquary's surface, yet it radiated a mocking heat when touched. The second twist came without warning, shattering the fragile calm. A scraping at the barricade drew their weapons. The entrance shuddered, then burst inward in a flurry of snow. Sokolov staggered through, or a hollowed version of him. His eyes were voids, pupils dilated to black pits, his uniform inexplicably clean amid the grime, no trace of the wound that had hobbled him. He mouthed words in a tongue twisted and ancient, gestures beckoning toward the reliquary as if drawn by an invisible thread. Ivanov recoiled, clutching the artifact to his chest, while Kuznetsov leveled his PPSH, finger tightening on the trigger. Sokolov lunged with inhuman speed, fingers curling like claws, whispering of eternal watch over Stalingrad's hallowed soil, a curse forged in the city's founding, when relics like this bound guardians against invaders. Shots cracked in the enclosed space, Kuznetsov's burst stitching across Sokolov's chest. The figure crumpled, but as blood should have pooled, it dissolved into eddying snow, leaving only a tarnished metal pinned to the floor. A cross of St. George from some forgotten war, its ribbon frayed. Panic rippled through the squad, the whispers erupting into a cacophony of wails that drowned the distant artillery. Petrov bolted for the breached entrance, rifle slung, only to vanish into the night with a strangled cry, his lantern clattering down the stairs. Vasilieva fired blindly into the dark, bullets sparking off metal, her face a mask of defiant terror. The cellar walls vibrated, runes mirroring those on the reliquary, etching into the frost-covered concrete like spreading veins. Hallucinations descended in waves. Visions of German phantoms in Feldgrau uniforms merging with Red Army ghosts in Telegrakas, marching endlessly through the factory halls, their faces skeletal from starvation, eyes pleading or accusing. Kuznetsov felt the premonition solidify. The relic's curse. A myth whispered among the defenders, born from the siege's horrors where the dead outnumbered the living, binding souls to repel the fascist tide at any cost, even turning brother against brother in perpetual vigil. The climax suffocated the night in unrelenting dread. The floor buckled, icy hands erupting from cracks in the concrete, grasping at ankles with bony tenacity. Ivanov screamed as tendrils of frost wrapped his legs, dragging him downward. He thrust the reliquary toward Vasilieva, who shattered it with a point-blank shot from her pistol. Shards scattered, but the curse intensified. The air thickened with spectral forms, apparitions of fallen comrades from the Barricadi factory assaults, their greatcoats tattered, mouths open in silent howls. Kuznetsov swung his submachine gun like a club, emptying his magazine into the encroaching shadows, visions assaulting his mind. Endless charges across the Volga's frozen banks, bayonets piercing forms that reform from snow, the weight of unburied dead pressing like an avalanche. Paranoia peaked. Vasilieva turned her rifle on Ivanov, accusing him in a hoarse whisper of summoning the curse, her shot echoing as he slumped, the reliquary's fragments embedding in his chest. Kuznetsov, alone now, backed into a corner, the walls closing like a tomb, whispers screaming indictments, cowardice in the face of the motherland's call, the futility of their stand amid the ruins. Yet, as the visions crested, a faint gray dawn filtered through the breaches, the whispers receding to murmurs carried on the wind. Kuznetsov emerged from the cellar, the sole survivor, his greatcoat torn, clutching a blood-stained letter from his sister, unread, its envelope crusted with frost, a fragile link to a world beyond the siege. He staggered through the factory's wreckage, the battlefield silent, save for the creak of settling rubble and the distant thud of shells. No triumphant horns blared, only the lingering echo from the ground, a vow that Stalingrad's guardians would rise again. The curse persisted, etched into veterans' tales around flickering campfires, a sorrowful unease that shadowed the Volga's banks long after the guns fell quiet. But the legend of the cursed relic did not fade with the battle's end. It wove into the fabric of Stalingrad's survival myths, passed from century to century in the frozen nights, growing like frost on barbed wire. Kuznetsov, upon rejoining the 62nd Army's remnants, collapsed into a medical dugout, his voice a ragged murmur recounting the night's terrors. The medics attributed it to exhaustion and frostbite, the delusions of a man teetering on the edge. But the story spread nonetheless. Whispers of a silver reliquary unearthed in the Red October's depths, an artifact from the city's Orthodox past, perhaps buried during the revolution to hide it from Bolshevik purges, now awakened by the bombardments to claim souls for the defense. In the broader siege, such folklore flourished amid the desperation. The Battle of Stalingrad had engulfed the city since late August 1942, when Luftwaffe raids turned neighborhoods into infernos, civilians huddling in basements as bombs rained. By September, the urban meat grinder began. Germans of the 6th Army pushing block by block, Soviets of Chuikov's 62nd clinging to every ruin. Factories like Red October became fortresses. Workshops turned kill zones where welders stoked torches once flared now hosted flamethrower duels. Soldiers adapted rituals for survival, touching amulets before charges, reading letters by lantern light as wards against homesickness. Superstitions abounded, rats swarming as omens of assault, the Volga ghost said to ferry the dead across the river in misty dawns. Kuznetsov's tale echoed real whispers, accounts of icons paraded along lines to jam enemy weapons, a nod to faith amid atheism's grip. In the factories, men spoke of guardian spirits, phantoms of Tsarist soldiers rising from unearthed graves, defending against the invaders. The cold amplified these myths. Temperatures plunging to minus 30 degrees Celsius turned wounds gangrenous, frostbite claiming toes and fingers, starvation reducing rations to watery soup and horseflesh. Encircled Germans promised airlifts that delivered fractions of needs, resorted to boiling boots, their diaries lamenting the Stalingrad cauldron as a frozen hell. Expand the narrative. Picture the squad's earlier days before the Relic's curse. They had held a position in the Barricadi arms factory, repelling waves with Katyusha barrages lighting the night like thunder flashes. Supply shortages forced scavenging, marching orders from command to hold at all costs, no retreat under Order 227. Uneasy premonitions haunted them. Vasilyeva dreaming of shadows in the sewers, Petrov finding bones in the rubble etched with prayers. The first twist's aftermath built tension. After Sokolov's vanishing, the squad navigated surreal paths, landmarks like the grain elevator's silhouette twisting in blizzards. Whispers recounted prior horrors, comrades buried alive in collapses, their gasps eternal. The second twist deepened paranoia. Sokolov's return not just physical, but invasive, his whispers infecting minds with visions of Mamayev Kurgan's bloodied slopes, where thousands fell. In the climax, hallucinations merged eras, apparitions of Civil War Reds clashing with Wehrmacht ghosts, the Relic's runes pulsing like heartbeats. Kuznetsov fought not just specters, but doubt. Was the curse real, or madness from the siege? Resolution lingered in sorrow. Kuznetsov, reassigned to the Don front, carried the letter home after victory, but Stalingrad's dread shadowed him. A myth whispered to new recruits. The battle's toll, over 1 million dead, city razed, yet folklore endured, blending suffering with the supernatural, a testament to human endurance in war's abyss.